years ago, we collaborated with an institute for work safety in Germany, and we vacuumed the dust out of the air just to see what is in the air and while blasting. And we did it with several abrasives, and you would be shocked when you see the results. And several abrasives, there are beryllium, there's arsenic inside, so heavy metals. In carcinogenic class 1, for example, they're causing lung cancer. We know that our abrasives are not containing any heavy metal. So even if the grains are breaking, there's no heavy metal in the air. Of course, you still have the danger of the coatings, of the lead coatings, asbestos coatings, etc. But there's not coming any additional hazard from the abrasive.
I think the other area of concern is free silica. I think we all know what free silica does when sand was used in sandblasting and led to silicosis, and I think we all know what happened there. And that's really critical nowadays. And I think it's essential that if you're going to choose an abrasive supplier, choose one where you're very confident that they bring that silica level down to safe and legislated levels. So we sat here in Australia today, and the limit is 1% in a bag of abrasive. At GMA, we keep that down to 0.05 to 0.1%. And the QA and the lab are very, very diligent on that. If a product fails any of our parameters, it just goes back and gets recycled or reprocessed, until it meets that spec. And we've measured some other products that have come across our desks in the market, and they're quite significantly exceeding those limits that we have here in Australia.
Your silica is so friable. It's a carcinogenic, but it's a mechanical thing, right? When you blast with something that has silica in it, it is so friable, it just shatters into a powder, and it can actually get into your lungs and tear. So it's a mechanical. You have to watch that. You also have to watch that with other abrasives that are even crushed glass. Crushed glass is very low, or doesn't really have any silica in it because it's fused. But because it breaks down and it's so friable, you can still, even if it doesn't cause silicosis, if you get too much in your lungs, there's a problem. The other card on it, though, is when you're talking again about your heavy metals, because silica and those are an irritant that can give you cancer. The other things are toxic. And so if depending on the toxicity, you've got, especially your byproducts, or your slags, your copper slag, coal slag, platinum slag, iron slag, you have all these things. Those were a byproduct of something that had some sort of level of toxicity that they didn't want to throw it in the trash. But the smart thing to do is let's go blast with it and make it a dust and breathe it. Well, you can breathe it and have poisoning. You can have a cut on your arm and get it into your bloodstream. You can eat it. So the heavy metals are actually a bigger thing even than the silica, because there's so many other ways. If it gets into the ground, it can contaminate. So it's the heavy metals are a new one that I don't see that going backwards in any way. I see that getting tougher and stricter, and you've seen it in the beryllium ruling. Right. We've always known that cadmiums and nickels and chromiums were bad. You have nickel slag. You have copper slag, has arsenic, some levels of arsenic.
Is that a lot of the misconceptions? Well, that's fine, but I have this respiratory and I'm protected and all that. Well, a lot of things wrong with that. One, when you take the respiratory off, there's no way to get that off your hood and not get some of that dust stir up, carry it into your vehicle. And what about your fellow workers that are right downwind of you? So it's
Chris, correct me when I'm wrong, but slags are already forbidden in Australia since decades. No?
Yeah, in Australia they're very, very rarely used because they don't meet the air quality guidelines. Right. So yeah, but that's probably one of the only regions in the world where we see that.
Shocking that we are still using it.
It's a funny and same time it's frustrating as well. We were with one of the biggest dry dock company in Middle East, and we were going through their approved vendor list and the product approved under their portfolio. One of the product they approved is coal slag, for example. Most of their contractors were using coal slag because it is approved. We just downloaded their product data sheet and safety data sheet of the product what they were using and approved, and it clearly says that it may cause the cancer. So we brought that up in front of the facility owner. We were discussing about, of course, the circular economy subject. However, the health and safety topic became so heated up. The owner, the contractor, including ourselves as a solution provider, we were all discussing, and immediately they started working on sustainability part, the human resources part and everything. and they took the step that someone has to seriously work on this. So this is the moment where seriously they made the shift. Luckily, the contractors were there, and contractors also started complaining about what the physical conditions they have gone through in last 10 to 15 years with their staff and all. So it helped the total case, and the owners understood. Now they're using GMA garnet, which is definitely a natural mineral product. And on top of it, we are providing a complete package solution, which is we are taking back their used garnet as well. So it's like a sustainable approach.
I was listening to a podcast one time and they were explaining about their abrasive and how great it was. And the one thing he said was, our abrasive is so safe. We test it to such and such level, and he said per EPA, and called out a number. And I backed up and I thought, safe. He's talking about workers, but he just called out the EPA. That's the environmental. So basically what he was saying was, I'm so worried about you as a customer that I'm gonna base your safety on the test that I would use to dispose of it, a landfill test. It's two different things. You can't say we passed the landfill test and that's okay to use on your person. It's two separate things, and people confuse those. Many times people confuse what those are. The other thing that they confuse is the crazy word out there, trace, right? But we only have trace amounts. What's a trace amount? By definition, a trace amount is a measurable amount below 0.1%. And on your SDSs, if it's below 0.1, you don't have to do it. Well, I can have 0.09% beryllium in my product. I just have a trace amount. I can have 0.00000009, and I have a trace amount. Are we equal? Well, no. What's your risk? I mean, if you're that close to it but you're still just a trace, you have to think about that risk. If you get in a confined area, the level's going to be off the charts.
So more and more contractors are looking into the total recycling package. They don't just simply want to give away their garnet for the waste disposal kind of thing. It doesn't go to landfill anymore. Any clients, if they are not using our recycling program, basically, we go encourage them to look into our recycling program, where we take back their used garnet. That's one of the innovation we can say that in our program. Also, we provide them sort of a certification, which is we call a green certificate. When it comes to the regulation, we follow all the guideline which is there under the municipality regulations, because once the garnet is being used in many categories, if it's a maintenance job, it is still considered as a hazardous waste. So it has to come through the regulatory approvals, which we call it NOC. So after the securing the NOC, there are multiple NOCs we have to secure just within one country itself, So yes, this is what we provide the solution to our customers basically.
Another thing too on it, you're talking about the dust levels with that. There's a big push, multiple areas in our industry, on dust and keeping down the dust. If you let's say you go on a tank job and you know that it's going to take you a week to blast this tank, and then a week to paint the tank. Well, if you use something that's dusty, you have to go. It may take an extra week for total containment, and then you have to have another week to tear down the containment. So you've just doubled the job because of that. So there you see the vapor blasters and things like that, trying to knock down the dust level so that you don't have to go through all that extra containment, what money. Plus, it's not safe. You have people crawling up and down scaffolds, things like this. You're creating unsafe environments on jobs. With that, the interesting part about it is you could go to an abrasive that isn't friable like that, and you can sit there and blast and you don't see any dust. I mean, you could go in there, you could blast faster with no dust, without the containment, knock it out in half a week, and then you can go ahead and you start to paint it.
And this is why our abrasives are innovative. It's not the technology itself. The abrasive blasting is well known since decades, since over 100 years. But the way our abrasives work, that's an innovation for the whole market.
Right.
Yeah. And also, in my opinion, the industries are changing. In Europe, all the authorities are investing so much money to work on the infrastructure. We have so many issues with steel bridges, for example, in Europe, which haven't been maintained for decades. So I think the focus of the industry will change in the future to infrastructure. It's a massive point in Europe, and we need to look after our infrastructure. Otherwise, a country might struggle in the future quite quickly.
I think we all know automation, robotics is gaining traction. People want to do things faster, and I think for GMA, we've already got those products that can do things faster. So when you combine those two, you can get some really good efficiency gains.
Let's say you have 3 people out there blasting at one time, or you can put 3 heads on a robot and one person sitting there running it back and forth. So much faster, but also there's new technology in nozzles. Something as simple as a nozzle, and creating nozzles with less thrust, so that you're not wearing the blaster out. Being able to sometimes increase your blasting performance. You go up 20-30% sometimes just by the length of the nozzle. So there's some of the new equipment that's out there on the blast pods can even monitor what your consumptions and thing, and start eliminating this. And like he said, we already have a performance abrasive, but if you start fixing all the other little things behind it, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. Ours actually allows you to, when you take the small steps, those small steps become bigger steps.
And those technologies help, as you would say, Pete, dial in the abrasive usage.
Right.
So we can get that to the optimum amount.
Right.
That's where we use most of our energy, like being with the client, being with the end users, encouraging them to understand what is the triangle, the efficient triangle we call it. It's all about having equipment, operator, and the abrasive in a proper sync. As far as the 3 things are not in the sync, things can go wrong. So the equipment has to be up to the optimal efficiency. Operator should have the proper knowledge about what they are using and to achieve what. Same time, the abrasive should be in such a way that it meets the requirement, what the surface needs it for surface preparation, basically. So we spend a lot of energy and time sitting with the end users, and we encourage them to focus on these 3 key areas. That is where the success is for our contractors and for our clients, basically.